The biggest surprise throughout the first 2 weeks of the NFL season in 2021 has to be the Carolina Panthers and their 2-0 start to this season. With a win against the Jets and a win against the New Orleans Saints in the past couple of weeks, they are off to a 2-0 start. Christian McCaffrey looks like an easy lock to be the comeback player of the year. Sam Darnold looks like the guy we all thought he could be when he was a second overall pick a few years ago. And the defense played an incredible game against the New Orleans Saints and the New York Jets to firmly establish themselves as one of the better young defenses in the NFL. And with the win yesterday against the New Orleans Saints, the Carolina Panthers keep their tie with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for first in the NFC South division. And, with the next couple of games going against the Houston Texans and the Dallas Cowboys, there's a good chance that the Carolina Panthers end the first month of their season with a 4-0 record and the best record in their division. And with all that being said, we kind of have to have the conversation of whether or not the Carolina Panthers look like they are a Super Bowl threat and a real Super Bowl contender for this season. So here's what I will say about the Carolina Panthers in terms of them not being a Super Bowl contender. Even though they are 2-0, those two wins do come against a New York Jets team who is in complete dysfunction, even though they do have their franchise quarterback in Zach Wilson. We saw what the downside of New York looks like this past week when Zach Wilson throws 4 picks and they look just terrible against the New England Patriots. And we saw them against the New Orleans Saints yesterday, who, even though they did beat the Packers 38-3 in the first week, they were down 8 coaches. They were down multiple great players on their team, like Marshawn Lattimore, like Michael Thomas, who still has not played yet, like Eric McCoy, like C.J. Gardner-Johnson. There's just a lot of guys on New Orleans who, both on the coaching staff and on the actual personnel level, who were not present for yesterday's game. And that is a big, blow for New Orleans, who looks like a team themselves who was supposed to be a Super Bowl contender this year. And a lot of what New Orleans did yesterday kind of just backfired on them, and it wasn't really something that Carolina was doing. It was more the fact that New Orleans just couldn't get out of their own way. Their first drive went sack, a penalty, a timeout, no real yardage, and then another penalty after that. And then after they punted on their first drive, they ended up stopping the Carolina Panthers on the first play. However, Peyton Turner had just an absolutely terrible, dumb penalty when he went low on Sam Darnold and ended up getting a roughing the passer call. And the team that the Carolina Panthers played yesterday was basically the kind of team from the New Orleans Saints that you would see in like week 2 of a preseason game. They were missing 10 of their main players. They were missing 8 of their coaches. They just did not look like the New Orleans Saints team that they're probably going to play in a few weeks when they do have their second matchup down in New Orleans. And that's another thing that you have to talk about with the New Orleans Saints is this is a team who early in the season has probably had more adversity than anyone. Not only with all the coaching staff that landed on the COVID list over this past week, all the players that they ended up missing over this past week, but the fact that they have not even been in their home stadium at all this year. They had to play their first home game in Jacksonville, of all places, and they have not had a good start to this season. So yes, even though it was a big win for the Carolina Panthers yesterday in terms of the scoreboard, it's just this is not the team that they're going to be seeing in a few weeks when they have that second matchup. Now, here's what I will say about the Carolina Panthers being an actual Super Bowl threat. They don't really need to be a Super Bowl threat right now in terms of being an on-the-radar threat. In their division, they're going to have teams like the Saints earlier this year when they thought to be a Super Bowl contender, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who right now are a Super Bowl contender. I mean, just look at the rest of the conference that has incredible teams. You have teams like the Seattle Seahawks, the Rams, the Packers. There's just a lot of teams in the NFC who are more on the radar threats than the Carolina Panthers are at this moment. And if the Carolina Panthers can have the kind of season where they kind of just float under the radar, win 11 to 12 games, and either win the division somehow or become that number 1 wildcard team, then they, like I said, will just be that under the radar threat to just upset a couple teams in the playoffs and maybe make their own run. Then when you look at the actual players on this team, like I said earlier, Christian McCaffrey already probably is a lock to win Comeback Player of the Year. And he's a guy playing with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold throughout his professional and collegiate career has never had someone like Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is an easy 100 to 150 scrimmage yards a game kind of player, just off the fact that he steps on the field and how well he's utilized by Matt Rule and that offense. And then the rest of the skill position players like Curtis Samuel, like Robbie Anderson, like DJ Moore, have proved to be everything that they are supposed to be in terms of that skill position group for the Carolina Panthers. DJ Moore looks incredible. Even they get someone like Brandon Zylstra yesterday to catch a touchdown just because of how well they scheme up their offense with Matt Rule. And Sam Darnold in a few of those throws looked just absolutely incredible. Like I said, when he is on script and when he is doing things that he is supposed to be doing and making throws that he's supposed to be making and reading things that he's supposed to be reading, he looks like a good quarterback. And yesterday, when those moments came up, he looked like a really good quarterback. Now, the defense is something that I actually really get excited about because not only have they drafted well in terms of just getting young players who can, step into positions and roles where they can be effective and just learn through some growing pains. Guys that they drafted like J.C. Horn, who got his first interception yesterday. Derek Brown, who's been an incredible interior pass rusher for his first couple of years and just interior presence in general. Shaq Thompson, the middle linebacker. Brian Burns, the outside linebacker / pass rusher. Jeremy Chin, the over-the-top safety who just is young and incredible. And then they get guys like Hassan Reddick, who is probably an incredible, even better, combination with Brian Burns than anyone that they could have chosen. He's young. He can play in pass coverage if they really need to, but he's really just going to be going after the quarterback and just making plays. He made an incredible play yesterday on a QB rollout that I don't know if many other guys could make. And the thing that I think a lot of defenses can look at in terms of judging whether or not they're actually good or not is how they affect the other offense on the first drive of the game. A lot of times an offense is really trying to put points up on the board on their first drive of the game. It's when a lot of teams are going to show something that is new or they're trying to just have a good drive to set the tone for the game. The first drive of the game for the New Orleans Saints yesterday, like I said, went penalty. Actually, it was a penalty for them that helped them. That was kind of maybe a close call. They ended up sacking Jameis Winston on the second play of the game. They forced 2 straight false starts, and the Saints just never did anything that gained real yardage. And with that, I think the Carolina Panthers are going to go within the rest of this season and just have that mindset of being a defense that can affect every single play of the snap. So with all that being said, do the Carolina Panthers actually have a chance to become a Super Bowl threat? Yeah, they honestly really do. A lot of it relies on the fact that Sam Darnold needs to get a little bit better off script. When he's forced out of the pocket from pressure or when he is forced to just make plays, whether it's with his legs, whether it's with his reads, whatever it is. That's just kind of the final part with Sam Darnold. If he gets that piece and is able to make himself into an incredible quarterback, then the Carolina Panthers are actually going to go really far with that defense and Christian McCaffrey and the rest of the skill group that they have there. If he doesn't, then I think the rest of the team can actually kind of build him up and kind of just put him on their back. A lot of times, quarterbacks put the team on their back. I think this team can put the quarterback on their back and carry him to a playoff. I think they're almost a playoff lock at this point with how well they've played early in the season. Even though it's gone against 2 teams who at this point are not what they're going to be later in the season, they still have played really well, and these games still count. And when they've been put onto the field and they have to perform, they have performed very, very well. So at this point, I think they really are a good threat to make the playoffs. I think they're a threat to win a couple games in the playoffs and maybe, just maybe, make a surprise NFC Championship appearance. With all that being said, that's going to be the video for me. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you leave a like. If you didn't, make sure you leave a dislike. At this point, any feedback from you is much appreciated. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.